Hello everybody and welcome back to Victoria, where we are currently working our way out of debt here, and apparently the music decided to not play on this startup. We'll see if it starts eventually. There doesn't seem to be a music player, unlike in a lot of other Paradox games, which is interesting. We'll see if that gets added in later. Oh, there we go. Now music is playing. Perfect. Okay, so we're digging our way out of debt right now. And that will definitely be a thing. It'll take a little while. But that's fine. We're digging our way up, and we're still constructing some paper mill expansions, as well as working on expanding our railway. So that's absolutely great. For the moment, I'm not too concerned about anything else, although we do still have expensive paper. That's fine. That is fully expected. Fully expected. So the paper mill has expanded. At this point, we're no longer seeing expensive iron, just expensive paper. Okay, in that case, I think that we should begin working on, if we go over here, begin working on a railway construction. And we'll build that right here. Just building the one. Yeah, that pulls us down to about the same temporary expenses. Cool. So that should be fine. And we're definitely working our way up in terms of cash. So our economy is still considered unhealthy, but it will be fixed soon enough. We should probably think about more taxation capacity in North Rhine. And let's see. Yeah, we have had our loyalists drop off due to our tax changes. That's pretty clear. But it's actually creeping its way back up, which is slightly shocking. Slightly shocking indeed, but that's fine. Okay, so we no longer have expensive government goods. That's great. We're working on building up railroads in all of these locations, of course. We need a few more, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 additional railroads. These are already size 1, so that's okay. And they cap out at size 5, if I recall correctly. Let's hop into our buildings here. It doesn't say here exactly, but if I recall correctly, it might not cap out at size 5. It might cap out at like 60 like the others. We'll find out. That'll be okay. So for the moment, we are finishing up our railways. We just want level 1 in all of these locations for now, because I want to see what that ends up feeling like. It may well be a mistake, but this first game here, it's a game to make mistakes in. No doubt about that. So, we could enact religious schools. There's a 12% chance every 180 days. We currently have public schools. So, this is our active law right now. It's providing us with 30% education access and 37.5% assimilation. Whereas this would give 30% education access, 60% conversion, and 30% evangelical church devout political strength. Okay. I kind of prefer the assimilation over the conversion, to be honest. Let's look in at some of our other laws here. Let's see here. There's a 12% chance of this just being passed per month, I think. And I think that's because we're bolstering these. Maybe. So we'll let that drop off for the moment. And I want to look in at our laws as it is right now. So we're on censorship, which is fine for the moment. We do currently need additional authority, I believe, right? This is our authority. So actually we don't. We could work on getting some of these changed if we wanted to. Okay. So we're on public schools for the moment, and that is, I think, the best that we can do there. Oh, that fully closes the screen. Okay, that's exciting. So public schools is fine. We're on local police force, interventionism, blah, blah, blah. Honestly, I think this is okay. We'll come back to the laws a little later on. We are making a decent amount of money right now, which is interesting considering that we are building 2. Let's try getting a 3rd railway under construction and seeing what that does to our income. We're still positive, so that's what's important here. Cool. So that means that we can now afford to build almost 3 simultaneously, looking at this. We are slightly dipping down into the negative here. I was hoping that that would remain positive, but, I mean, we are paying some in just 3.86 in subsidies. Okay. Sure. So for the time being, that's fine. I want to check in on some of these less profitable buildings, though, because I know, like, for the steel mills here, in Vic 2, these would eventually become, like, mothballed. Although this is currently hiring. And the cash reserves here are dropping off. Okay. Very interesting indeed. Okay. So we currently need iron. And I would definitely not mind expanding our iron mines here. So we've got an iron mine here and here. This one is full on its cash reserves, so I will go ahead and expand this one. Now that's going to put us pretty heavily into debt for the moment, but we are going to be finishing off this railway very shortly. So that will lift us back up a little bit. And we'll see how far into debt we end up being here. Language in the classroom. Ashkenazi students sometimes use their native language in Prussian schools. Some have called for teachers to penalize the use of these languages, forcing children to speak the official language of Prussia. You've noticed it too, right? He gets angry when anyone talks in class, but he always gets angrier when we're talking. Maybe he thinks we're talking about him. I think he just doesn't like being reminded that we know something he doesn't. So we could say this. 10% of the Ashkenazi pops would become more radical. However, we would get 20% assimilation. And we would get 20% radicals from discrimination. So what is our current radicals at? It is increasing. That's not shocking, given what we've got going on here. So linguistic freedom would reduce our assimilation for 5 years. But it would reduce radicals from discrimination. So how much are we getting from discrimination right now? A solid chunk of them. About 1/6. Okay. Good to know. Also, a politician died. A former politician has died. Okay, sure. I think that we're just going to go for the assimilation. Yeah, it'll give us more radicals in the short term, but I think in the long term that will be much better. Iron has come up in price. That's cool. So yeah, it's just iron at this moment. Fantastic. We're barely in debt right now, or we're barely running a deficit, I should say. We're pretty heavily in debt. But we are barely running a deficit at this moment. So we should await some of this finishing up before we queue anything else up. That's for sure. We should go to 2 constructions at this point, because I don't want to be running this deficit. Okay. The price of engines just skyrocketed. That's pretty good. Price of iron went down. Not so good for us. Price of transportation went down too. That's not necessarily great, but that is what it is. I'm not concerned about the actual good being produced by the railroads. We're building the railroads for the infrastructure bonuses. So if we come down here, we can see that that gives us plus 20 infrastructure. Oh, that didn't actually pin open. There we go. Plus 20 infrastructure. And what does that do? That's the state. There we go. It influences how well connected a state is to its market and how rapidly battalions mobilize. So that should be fine. It also gives us urbanization. So urbanization is generated by most buildings constructed in a state to varying degrees. For every 100 urbanization in a state, 1 urban center will also spring up. So that will increase this urban center, presumably. Cool. So that's fine. We definitely do want that, I think. I'm still not very well-versed in this game, but we'll get there. We will get there. Okay, so we're going to be constructing these iron mines, and we're going to be done with those in actually 2 weeks. So that's not too bad. That's fantastic. And I want to check in on... Okay, so we see the cash reserves here. Okay, so that's now up to 75k. Got it. Cool. So that'll be fine. The price of iron did drop. Not shocking. We can, I think, get away with building a 3rd railroad. Oh, yeah, we definitely can. Can we get away with a fourth? Not if we want... How do we remove this from the queue? Cancel expansion. Okay, that's a little bit clunky. I was expecting to be able to just right-click on it to cancel the expansion. Sadly, you can't. Okay, so we definitely don't want to build 4, but 3 will be fine. So there we go. Actually, we are negative here. So let's pull that back for the time being. Cool. Our interest is dropping. We're down to 5.38k. That's fantastic. And we do want to be paying back our credit. There's no doubt about that. We have paid back a good amount of it. Another nice engine price increase. I like it. That's great. So we can see that the Frankfurt market access here isn't great. But my question is, that's in Frankfurt. Like, we don't have anything to do with that. So I'm not sure why it's popping up like that, but okay, sure. So what's Austria up to? Are they being jerks? Not exactly at the moment. Okay. I'm not too concerned about Austria. We need to work our way out of debt. That's for sure. So we are paying a decent amount more in subsidies now. Import route for paper. Okay. And we can see that the price for engines is continuing to go up. Fine art, luxury clothes, both going up as well. Okay. And we know that our clothing factory that we built was building regular clothes. Or at least it was. Yeah, it's producing regular clothes right now. Okay, let's go back to here. And I wanted it to produce... Prioritize non-luxury clothing. So we can change it over to craftsman sewing, and it will now produce luxury clothes. As opposed to clothes. So this is going to be a pretty dramatic price drop for luxury clothes. Like, we're going to massively oversaturate this market. I think that's what this is telling me here. So let's take a quick look at the market for luxury clothes. Yeah, we've only got minus 12 right now, so that will definitely oversaturate that market. So I think that we don't want to do that right now. We do have demand for clothing at this moment, so swapping to luxury clothes is definitely not what we want. Grain would not be a bad thing to supply right now. But for the moment, I want to continue to construct level 1 railways. And there's only 2 locations left. We're 13 weeks until these railways are complete. I don't want to run a deficit at this time. That's for sure. Definitely do not want to run a deficit. Engine price is continuing to skyrocket. Yeah, I thought that would be the case. Okay. So we'll let this go for the moment. Sounds good. Now, I am concerned about our military issues. Considering our battalions here, it's rough. If Austria decides to attack us, we're going to have a hard time. I think that's very clear. So let's go to Austria here. 250 plus 127. Like, they're substantially stronger than we are. That's for sure. Transportation costs just came up. That's very good for us. So that's good. Great Britain started a native uprising play against Tahiti. That's awkward. Well, I wish them luck with that. And for the moment, we are, of course, having issues with this. Now, if we were to go to our construction sectors here, we could downsize them. But I think we're not going to. I think we're just going to leave that be. It's overbuilt. There's no doubt about that. But that's fine. Railway is fully employed in Prussian Brunswick. Always good. And we're going to be finishing up these railways in just 2 weeks. So at this point, I think I'm okay with running a 2-week deficit. In fact, now it's a 1-week deficit. So that'll be fine. In fact, we're barely running a deficit at all. Cool. So that was great. We're getting that going. And now we need to be thinking about what do we want for other goods. We could run wheat farms. That's a possibility. Looking at this market, there is a big deficit for wheat. Or rather, for grain. That's for sure. So that's not a terrible idea. Having our own supply of grain is not bad either, because it helps to be able to feed ourselves if we're going to go to war or anything. We do have an engines input goods shortage, though. So we should consider... We should absolutely consider building some... Or rather, expanding our motor industry, which is here. We have the #1 most productive motor industry in the world. Plus 90% productivity compared to the average motor industry. That's interesting. Okay, so our profit impact here is not going to be great. I think that this is going to drive up the price of steel pretty dramatically. That's going to cost 30 steel. And what is the current balance for steel? So let's take a look at steel here. Plus 16. So if we're going to do that, which I think we should do, but not necessarily immediately. If we're going to do that, we're going to need to increase our steel production as well. So realistically, our steel production is, of course, here in Westphalia. We're not very productive. Actually, we're the #3 most productive steel mill in the world. We got the water tube boiler. Cool. And the question then is, what do we need here? Coal, iron, and steel. Okay. So how are we doing for coal? Now that's a question. I don't think I've looked at coal. One of these is coal, and I'm not actually sure which one. Pretty sure it's not some of these. Okay, here's coal. So coal's at -411. So are we producing our own coal right now? That's a question that I have. So resources, coal mines. Yes, we are. North Rhine and Silesia. We could definitely expand our North Rhine coal mines. And that should be reasonably fine. We could take that up to size 5. I don't think we're going to do this immediately, though. We do have these railway constructions still going for another 14 weeks. And we're still working our way out of debt here. That said, our interest has dropped under 5K per month, so that's a good sign. And our credit is down to almost 3 million. So I love it. That's absolutely great. Absolutely great indeed. Okay, well, we could definitely just upgrade our engines, our motor industry here. Plus 110% compared to the average motor industry. That's very productive. And we're still negative, mostly because of steel. Got it. So we definitely do need to expand our steel mills. That said, do railroads cost steel or iron to construct? That's one thing that I'm having difficulties with right now, is knowing what goods we need to build that. Presumably it has to do with this iron frame buildings here. I think they all require the same. Is that correct? Well, we can actually look into our temporary constructions. Iron, wood, tools, fabric. And that is, I'm assuming, because of this. Tools, fabric, wood, iron. Yes. Okay. So we know that we don't, or we do have expensive paper currently. So I wouldn't mind producing additional paper. Now, we do currently have a size 4 paper mill in Brandenburg and a size 2 in East Prussia. And those are not profitable at this moment. The reason for that is because of wood. So actually, I'm thinking about producing additional wood. So, logging camps. We could definitely work on that. Definitely. Now, one thing I'm unclear on with these resources is, does this work like Vic 2, where we can stockpile resources before sending them onto the market and then use resources that we develop to essentially have a vertically integrated economy? That's something you could do in Vic 2. I've not seen anything for stockpiling in Vic 3 as of yet. I'm not sure it exists. We could go to we're on per capita taxation right now. We could theoretically think about proportional taxation. Oh, I see how this works, I think. We're on mercantilism right now. And I think that we are currently researching fractional distillation. We got a tech, but that's fine. We have no health system at the moment. Slavery is banned, which is fine. We're completely okay with that. We have no migration controls at the moment. That's okay, too. The state makes no special attempts to put a stop to unrest and uprisings. Fascinating. A lot of this very much does seem fine. We could go towards a dedicated police force, and I think that's not a terrible idea. We'll work on enacting that. Cool. Because one thing I'm definitely noticing with a lot of these profitabilities, right, is that if we go into here, the weekly balance, not of this railway, I wanted to check in on our... Where did I put that? I thought it was up here. There's a steel mill here. I guess that works. We can look at this. So looking at this, we are losing a little bit due to expenses, right? We are importing in iron and coal for this cost per week. And then this is our wages. Plus 6 infrastructure usage. Okay, got it. And then throughput is plus 1% from economy of scale. They become more efficient the larger they get. Okay, that makes sense. So we're on hand assembly right now. We could switch over to water tube boilers, which I believe, will that make it more or less efficient? It'll consume more tools and more coal, and it'll be less workers. By a decent amount. And our ownership is, we're currently privately owned. Okay. Noted. So we're not subsidized. We have 0 cash reserves, and we're losing 155 per week at this steel mill. Now, if we went to water tube boilers, that'll drop the employment by a little bit. And the weekly balance drops dramatically. Now, a large part of that is due to the price of coal, which is very high. So it's very clear to me at this point that we do need to produce more coal. I would like to vertically integrate it, but I think with the private ownership, that's not really a possibility. We would need to be on a command economy, if I'm reading this correctly, for that to work. So we'll tick forward here a little bit. We've got 8 weeks on our last 2 railways. I definitely do want to get these expansions done. Up to level 5. The question is, do we start this before or after we finish these railways? I think starting it now is completely fine. We will lose gold for a bit here, but it'll only be for a couple of weeks until we're done expanding these railways, and I think that's acceptable. We're digging our way out of our debt, but going a little bit more deficit-y for a brief period, I think is okay. So that should be fine. What do we got going on here? The price of steel is coming up, as is the price of iron. Okay, noted. So that should be just fine. We're going to continue expanding our coal mines here, because the price of coal is definitely causing issues with our steel and engine productions. So that's definitely a thing. We also want to probably consider expanding our iron production. I think that's pretty clear too. That said, iron production did improve a bit there. I mean, ideally, we would do something kind of like this. That actually only runs us a 32k. Okay, that's much more. I'm going to go ahead and cancel this expansion. Yeah, this is more acceptable. This is more acceptable. I'm not calling it acceptable, but it's more acceptable. So that'll be fine. Our coal mines are expanding. I'm actually just going to do this. There we go. And we'll run a deficit for a brief period here. 5 weeks until the coal mines are done, and then we're just going to stop our construction queuing for a bit and work our way further out of debt. But it is currently time to put a cut in here. So I'm going to go ahead and do that, and next episode, we're maybe going to tackle that paper in the Prussian market being expensive. You can leave your offerings to the engagement gods in the form of likes, comments, subscribes, and bell ringings, and a very special thank you to all of the channel members for making this video possible, including Casserole, JJ Gamer, Kentuin, Atala, Jensgram, Spartan News, Nick Smarty, Video Games Are Not Real, Dimitri H, Punching the Microphone, and all the rest. And of course, you. Thank you for watching. If you'd like to support the channel, you can click the join button down below the video. And as always, I will see you all next time.